Hi, my friend. Welcome back. Today we're talking about leading with punctuality. When I was a college student, I spent one summer in Springfield, Ohio with a fellow college friend as Bible workers. We went door to door appealing for interest in Bible studies, those who wanted to learn more about God in the Bible. Well, the conference or organization that we were working for had a president who was interested in spending some extra time with us. So he invited us to reserve 1 hour from 6 to 7 on Wednesday mornings for conversation and for prayer. We set the date for the first Wednesday, and our alarm clocks went off, but our eyes did not open. And we showed up late to that conference call, about 15 minutes. And before we proceeded to pray and talk, he shared with us a bit of insight. He said, "Gentlemen, before we proceed, I want you to know something very important that I hope you take with you into the rest of your lives." He said, "Every door that is open for me personally and professionally has come in large part simply because I was on time." He didn't need to say any more than that. We received the message loudly and clearly. And I suspect at this point in your leadership journey, you have learned as well as I, either from perfect attendance or maybe from some tardy attendance, the indispensable value of being punctual. Now, I have a friend who operates with such affection for punctuality that his moniker is this: to be on time is to be early. Because to come on time is to be late, and to be late is never acceptable. Say that 5 times, right? In other words, he says, listen, to be on time is to be at least 10 to 15 minutes early, because to come right on time is to be late. And in my book, being late is never acceptable. Now, I've been in another place visiting, and I've seen monikers on T-shirts and phrases on mugs and on spoon holders and pretty much anything that you can take as a souvenir. And here's what the phrase was: hurry up and wait. In this particular setting and context, punctuality wasn't exactly chronological, it was experiential. When people arrived and felt good and ready, that's when we began. So the flyer may say 10 o'clock, but we could really get things going at 10:30, 10:45, 11, maybe even after that. And depending on where you come from and what you're used to, that could be very annoying and bothersome. But in most of our settings and contexts, chronological punctuality is what we mean when we say we want to begin our meeting at 10 o'clock. We want to start the service at 11 o'clock. I want us to be ready for prayer at 9 o'clock. This will start at this time, and punctuality also says we're going to end at this time. And in leadership, one way to develop credibility and currency and trust amongst your team is being true to punctuality. We're going to start at this time, and we're going to end at this time. One of my favorite childhood pastors receives these glowing commendations from my parents. They were on his leadership team, my mother as women's ministry leader, at one point as children's ministry director, my father as an elder. They say of this pastor, one thing you could count on: he was going to start and end on time. It didn't matter if we had reached quorum yet. If we said we're starting at 12, we're starting at 12. And it doesn't matter what conversation we are talking about, what conversation point we're on. It will be tabled until the next meeting, because at 2 o'clock, we're going to stop. And all these years that have gone by since his pastorate of our home church, they still give him, hey, one thing we could count on. Now, there were so many other things about his leadership that were exceptional, but one thing they always talk about is we could trust that we were going to start and end on time. And I have learned that being punctual goes a long way. And so I want to offer 2 principles that you can keep in mind if you are seeking to maintain a culture of punctuality or encourage a culture of punctuality in your own leadership or in the leaders of those that you lead and serve. And here they are. Number 1, show up an hour in advance. If you want to create a wide berth around whatever it is that needs to start, give yourself an hour lead time. I received this and kind of caught it from my supervising pastor when I first started pastoring. Shout out to T-Med. And we had a board meeting, and he showed up an hour before. Now, I got there about 45 minutes before the board meeting, and I had some things to attend to unrelated to the board meeting. I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, I like to get here an hour in advance just to set up and make sure everything is working. Make sure the projector is working. Make sure my computer is working. to try to give myself time to attend to any unforeseen things that I didn't plan for, and to settle myself into the space so that when people come, I'm not hurried, I'm not rushed, I can receive them as they come in. He says, you do know that there are going to be some board members who are going to show up 30 seconds before we're ready to begin. Talk about, I got to use the restroom. Is there any water? Where are the agendas? And I don't want their showing up to impact me. So I get here an hour in advance. Do you know I have found great benefit in that? Showing up an hour in advance allows you to have the time to settle into the space, to internalize the true points of the agenda, or to otherwise receive people, last-minute questions, to engage them on things unrelated to the agenda or the service or the program or the experience, to just talk. Now, sometimes life does not permit that, but you still want to operate with this principle. How much earlier do I need to arrive so that when the start time comes, we're ready to say, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Let's pray. Thank you for being here. As opposed to getting into the other habit of saying, we thank you for being here. Just give us 5 minutes and then we'll begin. My wife and I attended an event recently and we felt what it was like to be on the other side of that. In fact, there really wasn't any communication. The flyer said 4:30, but 4:30 came and went, then 4:45, then 5, then 5:30. And we had to leave sooner than we wanted to attend to another commitment, but we wouldn't have had that conflict if the event had started on time. Leading with punctuality allows us to be able to respect people's time that they are investing, that they don't have to, they're investing it in this particular movement. And when you start and stop on time, it is just one intangible and often unspoken way of you saying, thank you. Number 2, schedule that meeting or that program an hour later. If number 1 is showing up an hour earlier, you want to begin to note your rhythms as a leader. And if you've been trying to nail it at 10 a.m. on the dot, or 12 noon, or 3 p.m., or 7 p.m., but it seems as though that can never really happen, maybe you're just having it an hour too soon, or 30 minutes too soon. So start scheduling the meeting an hour later. If you're having difficulty aiming at 10 o'clock, schedule it for 11, and you still prepare to show up at 10 o'clock. If it seems as though your team members just aren't arriving at 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock would be better. Sometimes the behavioral feedback allows us to make a calendar adjustment. Sundays is not a good day. Let's shift it to Mondays. This time doesn't seem to work because the sun is setting earlier. Let's shift it earlier or move it later. Scheduling it later, I have found, allows people to breathe a little bit freer and say, okay, man, I was trying my best to get there at 5:30, but now that we start at 6:30, attendance has gone up. Punctuality has improved. And leading with punctuality calls for us to be flexible between those two principles, showing up an hour earlier or scheduling a meeting an hour later to make sure that we're able to respect people's time by starting on time and ending on time. I want you to know that if you're in need of resetting the culture, consider the patterns of punctuality in your environment. Have people silently or vocally become used to, we never start on time or we never end on time? In time, that will become very draining and discouraging. But what you want to practice is letting people know that their time is meaningful to you. And for them, what you're going to do to show gratitude for that is to make sure that they develop a sense of expectation. One thing we know, in this organization, in this community, on this team, we're going to start and we're going to finish on time. Which one of these are you going to use? Are you going to show up an hour earlier, or do you need to schedule something an hour later? Whatever you do, lead with punctuality. I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, God bless you.